Once we were talking the thing over. Cheer up, Paladin. I had a dream last night, and you were the only one among us that got an appointment. It wasn't a high one, but it was an appointment. Anyway, some kind of a lackey or body servant or something of that kind. The paladin roused up and looked almost cheerful, for he was a believer in dreams, and anything and everything of a superstitious sort, in fact. He said with a rising hopefulness, I wish it might come true. Do you think it will come true? Certainly. I might almost say I know it will, for my dreams hardly ever fail. Noel, I could hug you if your dream could come true. I would indeed. To be a servant to the first general of France and have all the world hear of it, and the news go back to the village and make those gawk stare, and always said I wouldn't even amount to anything. Wouldn't it be great? Do you think it will come true, Noel? Don't you believe it will? I do. There's my hand on it. Noel, if it comes true, I'll never forget you. Shake again. I should be dressed in noble livery, and the news would go to the village, and those annals would say, Him, lackey to the general in chief, with the eyes of the whole world on him, admiring. Well, he has a shot up into the sky now, hasn't he? Began to walk the floor and pile castles in the air and so fast and so high that we could hardly keep up with him. Then all of a sudden, all the joy went out of his face and misery took its place, and he said, Oh dear, it is all a mistake. It will never come true. I forgot about the foolish business at Toul. I have kept out of her sight as much as I could all these weeks, hoping she would forget that and forgive it. But I know she never knew. Well, she can, of course, and after all, I wasn't to blame. I did say she promised to marry me, but they put me up to it and persuaded me. I swear they did. The vast creature the vast creature was almost crying. Then he pulled himself together and said remorsefully, It was the only lie I've ever told Anne. He was drowned out with a chorus of groans and outraged exclamations. Before he could begin again, one of D'Orland's livery servants appeared and said we were required at headquarters. We rose and Noel said, There, what did I tell you? I have a presentiment. The spirit of the prophecy is upon me. She's going to appoint him, and we are to go there and do him homage. Come along. But the paladin was afraid, so we left him. When we presently stood in the presence in front of a crowd of glittering officers of the army, Joan greeted us with a winning smile and said she appointed all of us to places in her household, for she wanted her old friends by her. It was a beautiful surprise to have ourselves honored like this, which she could have had people of birth and consequences instead, but we couldn't find our tongues to say so, so she was become so great and so high above us now. One at a time we stepped forward and each received his warrant from the hand of our chief Dolan. All of us had honorable places. The two knights stood highest, then Joan's two brothers. I was first page and secretary. A young gentleman named Raymond was a second page. Noel was her messenger. She had two heralds and also a chaplain and almoner, whose name was Jean Pasquerel. She had previously appointed a maître d'hôtel and a number of domestics. Now she looked around and said, But where is the paladin? The Sir Bertrand said, He thought he was not sent for, your excellency. Now that is not well. Let him be called. The paladin entered humbly enough. He ventured no farther than just within the door. He stopped there, looking embarrassed and afraid, and Joan spoke pleasantly and said, I watched you on the road. You began badly, but improved. Of old you were a famous talker, but there is a man in you, and I will bring it out. It was fine to see the paladin's face light up when she said that. Will you follow where I lead? Into the fire, he said. And I said to myself, by the ring of that, I think she has turned this braggart into a hero. It's another of her miracles. I make no doubt of it. I believe you, said Joan. Here, take my banner. You will ride with me in every field, and when France is saved, you will give it to me back. He took the banner, which is now the most precious of the memorials that remain of Joan of Arc, and his voice was unsteady with emotions. He said, If I ever disgrace this trust, my comrades here will know how to do a friend's office upon my body, and this charge I lay upon them, as knowing they will not fail me. Noel and I went back together, silent at first and impressed. Finally, Noel came up out of his thinkings and said, The first shall be last and the last first. There's authority for this surprise, but at the same time, wasn't it a lofty voice, our big bull? It truly was. I am not over being stunned yet. It was the greatest place in her gift. Yes, it was. There are many generals, and she can create more, but there is only one standard bearer. True, it is the most conspicuous place in the army after her own, and the most coveted and honorable. Sons of two dukes tried to get it, as we know, and of all the people in the world, the majestic windmill carries it off. Well, isn't it a gigantic promotion when you come to look at it? There's no doubt about it. It's kind of a copy of Joan's own in the miniature. I don't know how to account for it. Do you? Yes, without any doubt at all. This is, I think I do. Noel was surprised at that and glanced up quickly as if to see if I was in earnest. He said, I thought you couldn't be in earnest, but I see you are. If you can make me understand this puzzle, do it. Tell me what the explanation is. I believe I can. You have noticed that our chief knight says a good many wise things and has a thoughtful head on his shoulders. One day, riding along, we were talking about Joan's great talents, and he said, but greatest of all her gifts, she has the seeing eye. I said, like an unthinking fool, the seeing eye? I shouldn't count that for much. I suppose we all have it. No, he said, very few have it. Then we explained and made his meaning clear. He said the common eye sees only the outside of things and judges by that. But the seeing eye pierces through and reads the heart and the soul, finding their capacities which the outside didn't indicate or promise, and which the other kind of eye couldn't detect. He said the mightiest military geniuses must fall and come to nothing if they do not have the seeing eye. That is to say, if it cannot read men and select its subordinates with an infallible judgment. It sees as by intuition that this man is good for strategy, this one for dash and daredevil assault, the other for patient bulldog persistence, and it appoints each to his right place and wins, while the commander without the seeing eye would give to each the other's place and lose. He was right about Joan, and I saw it. When she was a child and a tramp came one night, her father and all of us took him for a rascal, but she saw the honest man through his rags. When I dined with the governor of Bangalore so long ago, I saw nothing in our two knights, though I sat with them and talked with them 2 hours. Joan was there 5 minutes, and neither spoke with them nor heard them speak. Yet she marked them for men of worth and fidelity, and they have confirmed her judgment. When she has she sent for us to take charge of the thundering rabble of new recruits at Blah, made up old, disbanded Armagnac raiders, unspeakable hellions, every one. Why, she has sent for Satan himself, that is to say. Lahire, that military hurricane, that Galva Schwarzblacker, that lurid conflagration of blasphemy, that Vesuvius of profanity, forever in eruption. Does he know how to deal with that mob of roaring devils? Better than any man that lives, for he is the head devil of this world, his own self. He is the match of the whole of them combined, and probably the father of most of them. She places him in temporary command until she can get to Blah herself, and then, by then, she will certainly take them in hand personally. Oh, I don't know her as well as I thought, after all these years of intimacy. That will be a sight to see, that fair spirit in her white armor to the muck heap, that rag pile, that abandoned refuge of perdition. Lahire, cried Noel, a hero of all these years. I too, his name stirs me just as it did when I was a little boy. I want to hear him swear. Of course, I would rather hear him swear than another man pray. He is the frankest man there is, and the knavest. Once, when he was rebuked for pillaging on his raid, he said, it was nothing. Said he, if God the Father were a soldier, he would rob. I judge he is the right man to take temporary charge there at Blah. Joan has cast the seeing eye upon him, you see. Which brings us back to where we started. I have an honest affection for the paladin, not merely because he is a good fellow, but because he is my child. I made him what he is, the windiest blusterer and most Catholic liar in the kingdom. I'm glad of his luck, but I hadn't the seeing eye. I shouldn't have chosen him for the most dangerous post in the army. I should have placed him in the rear to kill the wounded and violate the dead. Well, we shall see. Joan probably knows what is in him better than we do. And I'll give you another idea. When a person in Joan of Arc's position tells a man he is brave, he believes it. And believing it is enough. In fact, to believe yourself brave is to be brave. It is the one and only essential thing. Now you've hit it, cried Noel. She got the creating mouth as well as the seeing eye. Ah, yes, that is the thing. France was cowed and a coward. Joan of Arc has spoken, and France is marching with her head up. I was summoned now to write a letter from Joan's dictation. During the next day and night, our several uniforms were made by the tailors, and our new armor provided. We were beautiful to look upon now, whether clothed for peace or war, clothed for peace in costly stuffs and rich color. The paladin was a tower dyed with the glories of the sunset, plumed and sashed and ironclad for war. He was still statelier thing to look at. Orders had been issued for the march toward Blois. It was a clear, sharp, beautiful morning. As our showy gray companion trotted out in column, riding two and two, Joan and the Duke of Alençon in the lead, Dolan and the big standard bearer next, and so on, we made a handsome spectacle, as you may well imagine. And as we plowed through the cheering crowd with Joan bowing her plumed head to left and right, and the sun glittering from her silver mail, the spectators realized that the curtain was rolling up before their eyes upon the first act of a prodigious drama, and their rising hopes were expressed in an enthusiasm that increased with each moment, until at last one seemed to even physically feel the concussion of the huzzas as well as hear them. Far down the street we heard the softened strains of wind-blown music and saw a cloud of lancers moving, the sun glowing with a subdued light upon the masked armor, but striking bright upon the soaring lance heads, a vaguely luminous nebula, so to speak, with a constellation twinkling above it. And that was our guard of honor. They joined us. The procession was complete. The first war march of Joan of Arc was begun. The curtain was up. So what else?